Hello there, beautiful human. Melinda Joy, Crossroads Storyteller here with a hashtag video. Every month on my channel, I share a collective reading and 7 tapping videos to support us all in becoming our most true selves. So if you like tarot or tapping, you will want to press the subscribe button. And today I am responding to the hashtag 10 decks for 10 sephiroth, and I'll include the trio who began this hashtag in all of the description places. And full disclosure, I have done this hashtag before, but today we're going to do the Oracle deck version. Mostly because I love this hashtag so much, I can't stay away, and this is a good excuse to do it again, just a little bit differently. So I also want to give a little bit description of how I look at the way the tree engages with each other, and that will become more clear when I get to it. But before that, I also want to mention that if you are interested in Hermetic Kabbalah or Golden Dawn, lineage, ceremonial magic, or any of those things, you're going to want to check out 22 Teachings. And in my first version of this hashtag, I include a whole bunch of links to get you to the places that are directly related to the hashtag. So that'll give you a starting point. And today our starting point is going to be the Weird Sisters Oracle. Okay, so this is where I want to talk about how the tree connects to the rest of the tree a little bit. When I was beginning to assign my oracle decks to the tree, when I came to this deck, I initially thought that this deck would fit perfectly in Hesed. And the reason why I was thinking that was that the Weird Sisters Oracle is about fate, and the fates, like the fates are the Weird Sisters. And this oracle is, in addition to having the fates represented, they also have all sorts of magical ways to engage with one's fate. So we have sigils, we have candles, we have tools like the broom, etc. I think I'll probably show more of this deck, but first I want to talk about this, and maybe I'll leave the pretty image there. So then I realized when I was assigning all of my other decks that that I didn't have a deck for Binah. And I was like, oh no, you know what would fit perfectly and is also on my wish list is the Ritual Postures Oracle and guidebook. Like, that would fit perfect in Binah. And I was like, but I don't have that deck yet. So I would either need to like wait to make this video until I got that deck, or, and this is where I think it gets interesting, this deck could be assigned to Binah because of the fates. And I'll get into that a little bit more. But I think what is so interesting about these two spheres, Binah and Hesed, is that Saturn is the container and Jupiter is all of the abundance that fills the container up. Jupiter is that which pushes against the limits that Binah holds firm. And so they have a relationship. They're like collaborating, and there's no path between them. But when you look at the lightning flash, the lightning flash comes from Binah to Chesed. So they are connected in that sense, even though they don't have a path as is represented here. So that's my extra little tidbit to some of the insights I'm getting in my process of continuing to think about this hashtag and think about my decks in relationship to this hashtag. And yeah, part of why I'm getting so much brilliance out of this hashtag and why I want to do it again. Okay. So the fates. The fates are the limit that I was describing before. The barrier, the container for our lives and our experiences in physical bodies. And that's very much a Binah attribute. So even though I initially thought this deck would fit perfect for Hesed, it also works really well for Binah. And last time I did each pillar one at a time, and so I'm going to do that also this time, but we're going to go down the pillars instead of up the pillars. So yeah, there you have the Weird Sisters Oracle by Casey Zabala. And below Binah, we have Gevora. I'm really excited about this one. Okay, so for Gevora, I picked the Hip Hop Queens because part of the hip hop vibe is a furiosity, strength, a certain level of confidence, or at least presentation of confidence or self-acceptance. Yeah, like radical self-acceptance, which totally has to do with Mars, right? Mars is the last and first deacon. So it has to do with the ascendant and individuating and being your own person. And this deck just has a whole slew of super fantastic models or representatives modeling this fierce self acceptance and self-expression to this like outward expression of that confidence. So that was the Hip Hop Queens by Kathy and Monica. And then at the bottom of the pillar of form, we have Hode, which is associated with Mercury. And Mercury is a psychopomp. And so are birds when you look at them from a spiritual context. We have birds being connected to the underworld, the flight being what takes them or what makes it so that they can move between the upper, mid, and lower worlds. And when I think of Hod, the sphere, I think of the temple of Hod, and I think of a library, a massive library, so many levels, all of the information you could ever want. Here, I swear there's some really vibrant. Here we go. I just happened to show you all of the gray ones first. Yeah. So we have both the psychopomp quality and the access to other kinds of knowing represented in this deck. I really appreciate the intention behind this deck and creating more intimacy between humans and our bird relatives. So this is Birdkin by, let's see if I can give you a, oh no, why is there no, okay, here we have Karma Lay. I'm not sure if that's one name or two. Oh, here, make sure you can see it. Okay. Now we're going to move to the other side of the tree, and we're going to start at Hokmah. And in my last video, I said how I almost assigned the Stars Divine to Hokmah, because in addition to being associated with Uranus, it's also associated with the solar system and all of the celestial bodies. So this deck was created by Alejandra Leon, and she has several decks. This is her astrology deck, the Stars Divine. I really enjoy also how this deck, whenever I use it in a reading, I'm always reminded of my personal natal chart. And it's sort of brilliant to not only have, like, if I pulled the sun in any other tarot deck, I would think more specifically of the tarot associations with the sun. But when I pull from this deck, I also think about my sun, which is in Libra in the 10th house, conjunct Mars. So there you go. There's like all of a sudden a whole bunch more juicy goodness to pull from. So yeah, I just absolutely love this deck. Not only is it beautiful, but it helps me especially when I'm like journaling, to expand my consciousness, which is also connected to Hokmah. Trying to be fast. Sometimes when you do things fast, you end up doing things slow. Okay, so this is part of the impetus. I was having trouble figuring out if the Weird Sisters was Binah, what was going to be assigned to Chesed. And this deck just came into my life. I don't actually own this deck. This deck is on loan to me. but I am so excited about it that I think I'm for sure going to get one myself. And part of why I love it so much is I feel like it is the perfect oracle deck that my Creative Liberation, that my Creative Liberation Now deck didn't know it needed as a partner. It had this buddy out in the world and it didn't even know it, or at least I didn't. So yeah, that's why I think I must obtain this for myself. But the reason why it is associated with Chesed, in my opinion, is that all of these images are scanned pictures, or scanned, not pictures, just scanned items from nature. I'm not sure that all of the images were created that way, but this deck was created, I believe, in the early 90s. It's going to take me a moment to find out, so I'm not going to do that right now. But it was created a little bit ago, before anyone and everyone was collaging things digitally. So this person used technology for this collage work, but did it in a really unique way with a scanner. And ended up creating all of these mandalas, or yantras of nature. And the whole point of this deck is to represent the seed that is being birthed in our current collective experience. This deck is a direct response to the world having issues, and recognizing that we are not only letting something die or conclude, we are also birthing something. And so this deck is all about birthing that seed within each of us and helping create connections between our other earth family members. Oh man, so of course it goes with Creative Liberation Now deck. And also, of course, it goes with Chesed, because Chesed is Jupiter, and Jupiter is that life force that expands and becomes and grows, and yeah, that's what this is. So that is the Gaian Star Codex, Seeds of a Turned On World, by Bonnie Bell and David Todd. Also, this deck was created locally to me, and so that's also super special to me. Having some kind of connection to the artist just makes me so pleased. So we've got the Sphere of Venus, Netzach. And for Netzach, I chose the Rose Alchemy deck. And this deck very specifically works with Venusian energy. I'm blanking on the creator's name. Sandy. I'm not sure what Sandy's next name is. But Sandy was directly influenced by what she has identified as Venusian light beings. I believe that's how she would describe it. Kasha has some interviews with her, so if you're interested, you can explore Sandy more and get to know all of her intentions behind this deck. But it is incredibly... That's Kasha with Tarot Map. This deck is incredibly Venusian. In addition to that, it also makes me feel connected to myself. I use this deck for meditation primarily. It has a couple beat up cards because I'll put it in my shirt and then I'll forget that I put it there after my meditation and then I bend it. But I would rather enjoy using it than have a perfect pristine deck. Anyways, what I was saying is that it makes me feel like my authentic self is valuable and worthy, and I feel like that is really central to Netzach and sort of the lessons of Netzach. And this is the bag that Sandy sells to go with the deck. If you decide you want the deck, you can also order that at the same time. Okay, so that's the end of that pillar. And that leaves us with the middle pillar. And so we're going to start at the top again. And this is Keter. And Keter is the crown. It's connected to unity, oneness. And so I picked the Chakra Labyrinth cards by Toby Evans. And this deck is an older deck. I obtained this deck. I'm into labyrinths, and someone was not able to keep this deck, and so they caught on that I probably would enjoy it, and so they gave it to me, and I'm so stoked to have it. And the whole point of the deck is to there's a color association to each part of the labyrinth, and so you pull a card for each color on your way in and each color on your way out. And if you're walking in or out, you read accordingly which message it is that is for you. And yeah, you can be inspired by the image, but the whole point is that it is a coming back to the center, to the one, to the core essence, and then also honoring the multiplicity as that oneness expands into many. And so for that reason, I think this deck works well with Keter. But also to build off of what I had been talking about before, when I was explaining how I was struggling between where I was going to put the Weird Sisters Oracle. Here, maybe I can show you some more cards while I talk. Is that this core, this centerness, this unity is a theme for the entire middle pillar. And it is for sure a part of the next sphere, which is Tiferet. Okay. So for Tiferet, I chose the Oracle of the Radiant Sun. I apologize. This deck is not currently open, and I'm not going to open it for this video because I am intentionally saving the opening of this deck for a special occasion when I want to buy a deck, but also don't want to buy another deck. So then I will enjoy unboxing this at that time. So I guess in that sense, I am recognizing my authentic way of being in the world. And that is connected to Tiferet. But also what I like about this deck, in addition to the super obvious Sun association with Tiferet. This deck also includes all of the other planets and has a card for all of them in all of the signs, in addition to the sun in each of the signs. So in that sense, this oracle is sort of a representation of honoring individuals as a complete natal chart and not simply a sun sign. And I feel like that is also really resonant with Tiferet, because Tiferet is about going beyond programming and going beyond the superficial and diving deeper and understanding the complexity of oneself and honoring that complexity and acting accordingly to what that authenticity is. So yes, the Oracle of the Radiant Sun. Okay, so this was actually the deck that made me first inspired to do an Oracle deck version of the hashtag 10 decks for 10 sephiroth. I was reading in this book by Greer, Paths of Wisdom, about Yesod and how Yesod is connected to genitalia and sensuality and sexuality. And I instantly thought of several of my decks. Excuse me. And so this one is an honorable mention because I'm currently using this deck for a ritual purpose. So no one gets to see this deck right now, but it's created by Goddess Amina. And I'll leave that still in case you're interested in taking a photo of it so you can read more about her later and perhaps get into all of the goodness. But I love this deck because each card has a representation. It's not a representation, an actual image of a real vulva. And there's so much diversity. There's gender diversity, there's race diversity, there's body adornment / modification diversity. There's all of the diversity anyone could ever want in a vulva deck. So, on that note, the deck that I'm officially using for this sphere is the Altaloon Sensual Oracle Cards by Angela Mary Magic. And Angela has a tarot deck also. I believe that is a little bit more commonly known. I'm sure you can find someone unboxing that if you're interested. But this deck is especially for sensual inspiration. Oh, here's the key code cards so that you know what the color association is and the moon association. And then we also have musicians, cues or keywords, and then we have sensual prompts. So this one says, rename sex positions only you know with corresponding emojis. That's fun. I hadn't read that one before. Whisper to each other the moves that turn you on the most. So this deck is sort of designed for 2 or more lovers, but you can totally apply it outside of the bedroom or to a single individual, because I've done it. But yeah, because of that, this deck super obviously to me is connected to Yesod and all of the sensual, sexual goodness associated with it. last but not least, we have Malkuth. And so for Malkuth, I picked the Dirt Gem Oracle. And part of why I chose this deck, in addition to the obvious connection with the literal earth, I can't see right there very well, is the connection I mentioned before, where the oneness and centeredness of Kether is still present in the entire middle pillar, even though it changes how it is expressed throughout. And so in Malkuth, we have this oneness being represented as the spirit that animates physical reality. And this deck definitely honors the spirit in physical reality. And the microcosmic association to the macrocosmic version, or the macrocosmic reflection. I also really appreciate how like psychologically maybe informed or inspired this deck is. Yeah, the guidebook is brilliant. So if you are interested in this deck, I highly recommend that you also obtain the guidebook. But you know, you do you. So that was the Dirt Gems, and I apologize, I'm not sure who the creators are off the top of my head. So there you have it, the 10 decks for 10 Sephiroth Oracle Edition. I definitely have been thinking about more than just my Oracle decks. This hashtag has me thinking about all of my decks often, and about like where I would put them on the tree, or what parts of the tree they sort of interact between, or just like how one would chart different energies and different expressions of the divine on the tree is such a fun way to experience one's physical items. Like, it just like makes these decks all that more special and deeper. Anyways, so if you are interested in perhaps yet another edition of this hashtag, please let me know, because I feel a little bit silly for wanting to make even more versions of this hashtag. So if you're into it, if you're feeling it, please let me know. Encourage me further. And if you enjoyed this video, you might also enjoy the first version of the 10 decks for 10 Sephiroth, or one of my other video responses. But if you are going to do that, first make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And if you are interested in sending me gratitude, booking a tarot reading, or following me on social media, you're going to want to look for the single link below that includes all of those things. Okay, so much love and so many blessings.